Hey guys, OG Albina here, bringing you guys our BBR Season 4 draft analysis. Yes, we do have draft content coming back to the channel officially, like our first Wi-Fi league. We've had some discussion videos, some speed tours, but this is our first official league of the generation. I'm so excited to bring you guys some draft content again. It is my bread and butter, the thing I enjoy the most, uploading and playing. So I'm so excited. We have such a fun team, and I'm really excited to show you guys. But yeah. Before we jump into things, I do want to give a shout out to today's video sponsor, me. I don't have sponsors yet. I'm still very small, but if you want me to have sponsors, and help me out, if you sub to the channel, we get up there, might get some sponsor offers coming in. So go ahead and help me out and drop a sub so we can have real sponsors, and I don't have to call myself my own sponsor, right? But yeah, with that being said, let's go ahead and jump on into it. So going into BBR, we did 2 different draft pools because the Paldea index is very, very small right now, especially pre-home. Very, very small. So it was 2 draft pools of 8. The Terra rules is that we can have up to 2 captains that fit between a point allocation depending on how high tier the Pokemon is. You might not be able to get multiple. Spoilers, we only have 1 Terra captain. And we have to declare a type before the draft. As you can see, we drafted Roaring Moon round 1. Our new Draft League mascot, which you guys haven't seen the community tab. I posted the logo. We're going to be the Carolina Roaring Moon here in Generation 9. I posted the Miami Mets, which was before. But we got our mascot pick 1. We were first pick over on the draft, and now objectively there were for sure better things. Fluttermane was allowed, which is objectively probably the best one that we can potentially get. Iron Valiant was also available, and I was also really heavily debating Gen Pao because it's a Pokemon I really enjoy. But I gotta draft my mascot, like especially first league of the gen. I absolutely have to draft it, and I'm really excited to use it. This is going to be our Terra captain this season. We are Terra Steel. I debated between Terra Steel, Terra Dark, and Terra Flying. Terra Dark just for really strong crunches, especially on like choice band variants. I debated Terra Flying for booster energy acrobatic sets. Very, very strong set. But I ended up going with Steel because I felt like it had, especially in a draft league in a counter team format, it had the most variability offensively and defensively, being able to resist Fairy opposed to being weak to it. It's great. Same thing with Ice, eliminating 2 weaknesses, as well as getting a stab boost on top of our Iron Head, allowing us to really, really nuke through and do a lot of damage to opposing fairies, which are going to be the main thing that, potentially wants to stop Roaring Moon here. Other than that, as great coverage and like Earthquake and, obviously Crunch, and it's like the only one that gets Scale Shot, which is pretty cool. It gets U-Turn, which is great, reliable recovery and roost. It also has pretty slept on bulk too, in my opinion. But yeah, definitely a really, really fun mon. I'm super excited. It's definitely my favorite Pokemon of the generation, obviously, too. Being the big Salamence fan I am, so I'm really excited to use it here this gen. And it's going to be a really fun centerpiece. Okay, next up, round 2, I ended up drafting Annihilape. Now, I know this is Terra Water here. I just genned in a cool set because I'm going to get hold of Monster Cooper afterwards. This isn't a Terra Captain, but it is a Pokemon that's going to be very, very fun. It's a Pokemon I think we actually had pretty underpriced in this, draft. We didn't really know how Rage Fist worked when we were tiering, and then the draft happened, and then we kind of like understood how Rage Fist worked, which if you don't know, as you can see right here, it is going to be a 50 base power move, but each time you're hit, the power increases by 50 base power, getting up to 100, 150, 200, 250, and really, really compounding, and getting pretty darn out of hand, which is really cool on a Pokemon as bulky as Annihilape. It actually, it actually has like some really, really good considerable bulk. I think it's based like 110 HP and very solid defenses. It's a little bit slower than regular Primeape. I think it's base 90, but honestly that's fine. It can be a great Scarfer. It's great with the bulk up variants, whether that be bulk up Resto Chesto, bulk up Taunt. Fighting a Ghost is just damn near perfect. It is perfect coverage, honestly. It's 100% perfect coverage. We've used Marshadow in the past in BBL and Ubers leagues, and it's absolutely impossible to switch into these kinds of stabs. Rage Fist is kind of its only like really viable ghost stab. It can also Shadow Claw, but not the strongest move in the world. And we kind of have to make sure we're taking damage for Rage Fist to really do its thing, but still definitely usable. Great coverage overall. It can bulk up like we said. It can also Stealth Rock, and it can also Final Gambit with 110 HP. So it's the highest Final Gambit in the game, which can always be very, very valuable. So yeah, that being said, round 3, with that wheel, we end up grabbing Slowking. I really like this thing, man. I think it's an incredible Pokemon. It did lose Scald this generation, which is a big, big nerf, and it lost Teleport, which initially was thought to be a pretty big nerf, but it got access to a new move called Chilly Reception, which not only sets the snow, but also switches it out. And honestly, with as slow as you are, you pretty much have negative priority on your Slowking Chilly Reception. Not many things are going to underspeed you, so it really works like Teleport in that sense. And I figured there could be some cool combinations there if we ended up getting Slowking, and getting free momentum into things like Annihilape, especially on like dark types that might want to pivot in on Slowking, or getting free switches into Roaring Moon, or our next Pokemon, as you'll see, are going to be really, really beneficial and really awesome. It can also set Trick Room, it can be Calm Mind Nasty Plot, it can still slack off and things like that. The biggest nerf, like I said, is going to be that loss of Surf, but it's still a great Spadef Sponge. Throws off future sights. It's just a general nuisance and an overall really, really good Pokemon. It's a Pokemon I love using in draft, so I'm definitely excited to get a little bit more of a comfort pick here in the Paldea region. Next up, we just got the Chilly Reception Mon, so I actually decided to kind of splurge a little bit and get a Cetitan next. Now, I know it's a bit odd, considering that we don't actually have a, permanent hail or snow, I guess now, setter, but with Chilly Reception and like an Icy Rock, we can kind of make it work a little bit better in some instances than something like a Bomb Snow that has to kind of directly switch into the Cetitan, whereas the Chilly Reception is going to allow us to get free switches into this guy and really break through with Slush Rush variants. It has great coverage overall. It was a model I was debating giving my Terra Captain to and not going Roaring Moon. Maybe we'll end up changing that, but I think it's also very, very viable outside of being a Slush Rush sweeper. It has extra sheer force and plenty of moves that can be benefited from that. It also has extra thick fat, which is a great ability on an ice type, obviously. Things like Mamoswine with it prior are going to be great. It has ridiculous bulk. In the snow, it's a Fizz-Def monster, too. So that's another thing to keep in mind. Gets priority in Ice Shard. It can Earthquake and Superpower and Play Rough. And Ice Whip Crash or Ice Spinner. It can Ice Shard for priority. And again, it's just going to overall be a very, very strong Pokemon. And a little bit more versatile than I think people are giving it credit for. Now, I could have just super overpaid and drafted a pretty weird Mon, but I think it's pretty solid. Next up, I kind of drafted this Pokemon out of like kind of seeing that there really wasn't many Pokemon that offer what this thing does in this generation, and that's going to be Klefki. I drafted Klefki because not only is the Steel type pool very limited, but the Fairy type pool is incredibly limited. So getting a solid Fairy and a Steel in one was great roll compression, but also great for a team like this. Getting a Fairy is just really important when I have something like Roaring Moon if I don't want to Terra yet or something like that, because there's definitely going to be instances in which I would rather keep my Dark typing or something of the sort. So that's going to be incredible. It gives me a Spiker, and Spikes is going to be incredible with Annihilape and Roaring Moon and Cetitan and things like that. Like, I think it's going to be a really, really clutch aspect of it. We get Speed Control and Thunder Wave. I think we did lose Defog this generation, which sucks, but we can also dual screen for setup opportunities with Roaring Moon. Like, there's a lot of really, really cool things that we can do, provided we, can position Klefki correctly, and it's a nice soft check to a lot of things. So I'm a big Klefki fan. I definitely like them on a lot. So, yeah, we have it here as our, I believe, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, round 5 pick. And then, again, kind of looking at the pool and recognizing that the metagame is pretty tough in this regards, and also recognizing that my Ghost Resist right now is my main offensive piece in a Pokemon that does not want to take hits. Excuse me. I wanted to grab a Pokemon next that really, really allowed me to switch into Ghosts and check them, well. And that is going to be the Dunsparce. I know a lot of people really don't like this thing's design, but I like him. I think he's cool. I used him in a speed tour as well before, and this thing is incredibly bulky. 125 HP plus very solid defensive with access to Roost. It can glare for speed control, so more Thunder Wave. On top of Slowking and Klefki. It can set up rocks, it can Calm Mind, it can Coil, it can be physical or special, either like Hyper Drill, like Earthquake variants, like I think this one is, or you can rock out with like Boom Burst, Earth Power, or Fire Blast, or Ice Beam. Serene Grace is always a solid ability, especially when you can throw off, pretty nasty Ice Beams and Flamethrowers and get a boosted chance to get some nasty status conditions and things like that. Reliable recovery is great. Again, a solid rocker. I think this Pokemon is going to be absolutely one of my favorites from this generation. It's just some great low to mid tier value. Like, I really, really liked the Dunsparce, so I'm happy we ended up picking it up here. And, yeah. Next up, I want to grab a Ground. I want to grab Poison. We're kind of roll compressing at this point. I grab Big Quagsire. Again, more hazards. I think hazards are the name of the game this generation, especially with the team that we have. With that top 3 offense we have in, Roaring Moon, Annihilape, and Cetitan. They really appreciate rocks and spikes, and T-spikes especially. I think Annihilape in particular really, really appreciates T-spikes. Same thing with Cetitan too. If bulky waters want to come in and they want to take a spike and a T-spike, and then they take an Ice Spinner, yeah, they might take 25% from the Ice Spinner, but they're taking like 40-45 overall after all that chip and that damage and things like that. So I think that's a really, really clutch aspect of Quagsire here. 2 great abilities in either Water Absorb or Unaware, giving us a setup you know, deterrent is really, really clutch in a metagame like this, where it's so offensive and there's so many big scary threats. Like, I think like unaware boot sets are going to be incredible in draft and things like that. It really is just a really solid Pokemon. I think it really rounds the team together well. Gives a ton of roles that we really needed at this point, and it's going to be a really solid one. I love his design too. Such a cute guy. Now, next up, I ended up grabbing Volcarona. I kind of had the price point for it. And I felt like my team, really pressured like waters and things of the sort. To where Volcarona could come in and thrive and do really well. It gives me something to break through bulky steals, which I think my team kind of struggled with at this point. I didn't really have anything that like just broke through them outside of Annihilape. So having Volcarona to do so is great. Again, in a very setup latent meta, we have some dual screens. We have options to set up Quiver Dances and really go to town. It still gets Morning Sun for reliable recovery despite losing Roost. Fire Dance is a great move. Bug Buzz, Giga Drain, Psychic, all that fun stuff is stuff we can still do. And I think a really slept on aspect of Volcarona too is its utility that it offers to teams outside of being Quiver Dance, whether that be fat defensive sets with like Will-O-Wisp and U-Turn, or whether that be choice specs variants. If I feel like I can keep hazards away well, which you see our next member does kind of help with, I can run like, you know, specs variants or boosting item variants. While I might not be able to set up and sweep, I can throw off really strong attacks, whether it be like specs overheat. It's such a demon thing to switch into from Volcarona. It's also a great Spadef wall. It also gives me a better ice resist than Klefki. Again, something else to bully fairies, which my team kind of struggled with offensively, or like breaking through them offensively. We have good defensive checks to them, but offensively they're kind of weak Pokemon, so they can kind of get overwhelmed by them. So I think Volcarona really helps with that as well. I think this Pokemon's going to be really solid on the team, and I'm excited to use it. I haven't used Vulcan Draft in I don't know how long. Okay, next up, I think second to last, we end up grabbing Tsareena. Originally, this was Abomasnow, but I ended up deciding to drop Abomasnow despite having Cetitan because I looked at my team and I had no removal. And while I do think that boots are obviously a very viable option on a ton of Pokemon, I don't want to be forced into running boots on every single one of my Pokemon every week, because in the most hazard stack oriented generation of all time, I don't have any removal. Now, Tsareena isn't the most incredible spinner. It's actually a Pokemon that I've kind of expressed my distaste for in the past, but it's still a very solid one. Something that really sucks is that I did lose access to Knockoff and Triple Axle, but Knockoff is the biggest one because you get Ice Spinner, so it's still ice coverage. But losing Knockoff is really big, especially in a spinning role. Not really being able to like as potently threaten those spin blockers, depending on what they are, is really tough and is really going to be unfortunate. But it still does function in that role well. It's great with an AV, great with boots. I've even seen Choice Bands Tsareena put in some work, so you could definitely do some really cool stuff, and I'm definitely excited to use it this season. Then lastly, I had like 2 or 3 points left. I wanted some good value, and I think Electrode is great value. I really like this Pokemon a lot, man. For a low tier electric, it's very solid. I thought about, again, making it like a low tier Terra Captain with something like Cetitan. Again, maybe we'll end up changing things up and going that way, and maybe going like Terra Grass or something like that, or Terra Ice, just to get that Bolt Beam coverage. But regardless, it's not really usually here to do all the most damage. It's here to pivot, be annoying with either static or aftermath. It can boom. It can set up, I believe, just a light screen, but it can set up a screen. And it's going to be a great flying pivot and pivot into flying types. As you saw my team before, Klefki is my only flying resist, and that's pretty scary, honestly. And I have Pokemon that can naturally bulk out a lot of offensive flyings, like things like Quagsire and Dunsparce and things like that. But a Pokemon like Staraptor in particular looked very threatening to my team, and while Electrode may not wall them, it's going to deter them from clicking attacks with static and Rocky Helmet and being faster than them if they're not Scarf variants and things like that. And they can get really, it can be a nice solid, soft check to those kinds of Pokemon. Yeah, that is basically going to be the team. It's a pretty fun one. I'm definitely really excited to try it out. I'm really excited to try out Roaring Moon. Let me know what you guys think of the team. Let me know what you're most excited to see us use this season, whether that be Annihilape or Hail or Big Roaring Moon, just like me. But yeah, hopefully we can bring home some dubs, bring home a championship to start off the generation. That would be incredible. And yeah, I will see you guys next week on Sunday with our first game. Obviously, I'll have uploads in between them, but our first BBR game is next Sunday against 3 Arcade, who's a really nice guy. Go check out the coach in the description below. Go check out their draft analysis. They all have some really cool teams, and it's always cool to see new drafts in the first gen first start. So, yeah, with that being said, like I said, I'll see you guys in the next one. Later.